Greetings and welcome back to the channel, World War II Books Where to Start. I'm your host, Admiral Charles Lockwood, and today we're going to run down the 5 most essential books of submarine warfare from World War II, and this list is going to be all from a seat of the pants, looking through the binoculars kind of perspective. I think I may do an overview list later to complement this one, but for today, a strictly sea-level view of the topic, so to speak. And looking over, I suddenly realized I've got nothing from the Italians or the Soviets in this department, an oversight I ought to repair. I've never seen an Italian or a Russian memoir or history of their sub-operations in the war. I've got one book from the Brits called One of Our Submarines, but I haven't read it yet, and there are a couple from the Japanese, such as I-Boat Captain, that are, quite frankly, just not very worthwhile. So today we're going to stick to the big boys, the Americans and the Germans. Listed 5 to 1 here for convenience sake, but I really wouldn't say any one of these is more essential than the others in my mind. And with that, it's time to separate the wheat from the chaff. Sound the diving klaxon as we go to periscope depth, and let's hit the books. So this first one is as much treasure hunting territory and mystery thriller as anything else. Shadow Divers by Robert Curzon from 2004 at 356 pages main body with a decent photo section. Not great, it's decent. Chronicling the discovery of a U-boat in shallow waters off the New Jersey coast in 1991 and the subsequent efforts of several divers led by John Chatterton and Richie Kohler to document, photograph, and eventually get inside the hull of this mystery boat in order to identify it. It's where it's not supposed to be, and no one knows which one it is. Kind of mystery. This is everything you want in a sucking U-boat story except Nazi gold, because that ain't how real life works. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Jude Law, and your terrible movie, Black Sea. If this book has any vices, it's simply that it goes on too long, teasing the idea of the boat and its crew. I'd say a good 75 pages could have been chopped and condensed to get it to the right length for interest and level of drama. But aside from that, it's excellent. The Shadow Divers by Robert Curzon. Number 4, Thunder Below by Eugene Fluckey from 1991, 464 pages. This is the saga of the USS Barb, a very successful sub under the command of Fluckey and his absolutely relentless, aggressive style of command. There was virtually no situation in which he would not press an attack and come away with a sinking for his efforts. He has to get creative in late war patrols, as most of the Japanese merchant marine has been taken care of, and here he points the way to the future use of subs as mobile bases for special forces troops landing on hostile shores. Not kidding, he really did improvise what today is considered pretty normal. Absolutely outstanding. That's Thunder Below. You want an enlisted man's view of the U-boat war, you ask? Well, I got you covered with Steel Boats and Iron Hearts by Hans Gobler with John Vanzo from 2004, 282 pages, and never mind the banner on the cover, there was no film ever developed from this memoir. Hans is a very young recruit in the German Navy assigned to U-boat duty, and he loves it, even though this particular boat, the U-505, has only modest success in its first patrols with him aboard, followed by no end of hard times and close escapes and one really harrowing experience during a depth charge attack when his captain decides to opt out of existence and leave the crew to its fate. Its fate arrives more than a year later when a hunter-killer group under the command of Daniel Gallery blasts the 5105 to the surface and captures the boat, a first for the U.S. Navy since its early days in the age of sail. Hans doesn't much appreciate his captivity, but he does end up living in the States in Chicago for a number of years, gladly taking tour groups through the 505 in her role as permanent museum. Don't take everything he says as gospel truth, especially the bits ashore, but a good yarn is a good yarn. And this is a memoir I think is essential for submarine warfare reading. That's Sailboat Iron Hearts. All right, next up, we're going to go with Clear the Bridge by Richard H. O'Kane from 1977, 480 pages. Having been apprenticed to Mush Morton in Wahoo, O'Kane was well schooled by the time he was given command of the new construction Tang, and he went on to set the pace for all American subs in the Pacific War, averaging a sinking once every 11 days, ranking second in ships sunk during the war and fourth in enemy tonnage sunk. During one patrol, they fish a Japanese sailor from the water and keep him as a prisoner, naming him Firecracker and teaching him a few choice phrases of English, as you might expect. But in 45, the Tang's fortunes run out and she's caught on the surface trying to enter the inland sea and is sunk, with O'Kane and the bridge watch being washed into the water while the boat went down in roughly 90 feet of water. Several of the trapped men get out through the escape trunk, but the majority perish. O'Kane and his men suffer the typical experience of Americans in Japanese POW camps for the remainder of the war. It's another must-read for Submarine Warfare Department of the Second World War. That is Clear the Bridge. And naturally enough, finishing up the list today is Iron Coffins from Herbert Werner from 1969, 329 pages. It's one of several memoirs by U-boat commanders in the war, but in my fine estimate, simply the best. As a junior watch officer in his first boat, he sees the end of any real successes the U-boat arm can produce as the Allies begin to overwhelm Germany's outdated and radar-less boats. As a captain of his own boat, the U-415, he makes only 2 patrols and is sunk by a mine. Given the U-953 with the snorkel, his most remarkable feat is managing to get back to Arctic waters, the snorkel being more of a danger than a benefit to the boat. His depiction of sweating out depth charge attacks on his first boat, the U-230, had to be the best I've ever read. Surviving the war means he gets imprisoned briefly in one of the infamous Rhine meadow camps, and his happy ending is his escape into the fields and forests, where he ends the memoir. Absolutely top-notch bookishness here, and although it's gone through a dozen or more cover art iterations throughout the decades, I cling to my classic cover, Bantam Edition, as the best of the lot. And that will end the session here today. I'm absolutely positive that at least 2, or perhaps as many as 4 of these books listed here are already either on your shelves or they're very soon to be. I'm Charles Lockwood, and I've got my own tasty memoir to write about our submarine campaign against Japan. So until next time, happy reading.